get us kicked off. So morning everybody, my name's Zopash Iqbal and I'm on the marketing team here at Bridgel. I just wanted to thank you all for joining us this morning for our Azure Virtual Desktop session. There's just a quick note before we get started. So this session is being recorded and we will be we're sending out a copy of the recording and the slides after the event. So if there's anything you want to catch up on, or if there's any of your colleagues that couldn't make it, you can share the resources with them later on. You'll notice that you're on mute at the moment, but we do encourage you to use the chat function. So if there's any questions that you do have, we do encourage you to use the chat and we'll do our best to answer them during the session. We do have a Q&A session at the end as well. So if you want to keep any of the questions for later on as well, we'll do our best to get them covered. So what I'll do just now then is I'll pass you on to our team of experts. So we've got Craig Spears, Liam Ray and Liam Henderson who will be manning the chat today. So thanks again for joining us, and I'll hand over to Craig. Thank you so much.
Yep, so good morning everyone. Thanks for attending this webinar. Yep, so my name is Craig Spears. I'm the Senior Cloud Consultant for Bridgel, and my colleague Liam Ray, he'll be assisting with the webinar today, and my colleague Liam Henderson, he'll be manning the chat. So I'll move on to the agenda. This is the agenda for today. It'll be high level and not too technical, but if there's an interest in certain topics, then feel free to get in touch after this or stick something in the chat and we can look to discuss it at the end of the webinar. Okay, so this is a quick overview of Bridgel. Basically, we're a Glasgow-based MSP with 44 staff, and that number is growing. The company was established in the end of 2002, and we have been operating for 21 years now. And last year we had our 20th year anniversary, which was a getaway down south, which was pretty good. Bridgel advise and implement and support technology solutions to help improve businesses. This covers 4 key business areas: modern intelligent workplace, with a focus on improving employee productivity and satisfaction; managed IT support and services, which is the department myself and the two Liams work in, which covers security, infrastructure and cloud services. And also I've moved into the VoIP solution market as well. And analytics and applications, where the focus is business intelligence, data analytics and bespoke software solutions. And finally Trevi, which is a suite of product solutions focused on the water utility sector. We're a 10 times Microsoft Gold partner and a Microsoft Content Service Group preferred partner, one of only 26 worldwide. We also hold the ISO 9001 and 27001 certificates and hold the government-backed Cyber Essentials Plus. This is a snapshot of a selection of customers across private and public sectors and across a number of industry verticals such as manufacturing, housing, national government, NHS, utilities and events. Okay, so this slide or this section will be the introduction to Azure Virtual Desktop. Within the slides, we'll change the name from AVD to Azure Virtual Desktop, but they're both the same thing. And Zopash will look to introduce a poll here in regards to how much you know about it. So that should pop up any second now. Okay, in this slide, we've listed the common challenges for modern day workforce. The COVID-19 pandemic kickstarted a major shift to remote working. We've all had to adjust to working from wherever we are, and now we are bringing our own device policies in place so users can carry out their work. In addition to this, we also have field roles in different branch locations that also need access to business systems. If the infrastructure and tools used are not up to standard, your employee experience is going to be low. You want new and existing staff to be comfortable and to be able to work at their best with the right tools. Performance issues and challenges can also be a result of poor VPN connectivity and issues with on-premise data centers and network latency. As a business, you may be looking to grow. You need to be able to scale quickly from with the existing infrastructure having the capacity to accommodate this. The main major challenge for modern day workforce is security, and since the pandemic, there's been a year-on-year increase in cyber attacks and security breaches. We need to ensure we keep all data safe and secure, but we might have industry standards we need to follow and government regulations we need to consider. With specialised workloads, this ties back into the existing infrastructure question. We need to be able to scale to meet user demands, which is often a restriction of an on-premise environment, and feeds into the budgets and resources required to purchase additional hardware and administer the environments. In recent years, traditional VDI solutions are now dated and have several limitations, which are lack of flexibility. The modern day workforce needs the flexibility to access apps and data from multiple devices, with the apps either Windows or Linux based, and access to either full virtual desktops or remote apps. Ability constraints. Remote workers sometimes have limited bandwidth. This will impact user experience and productivity due to poor connectivity. Scalability challenges. Traditional solutions can be difficult to scale rapidly, and adding capacity requires significant lead time and admin resources. High cost. The infrastructure, licensing, maintenance, and complexity of traditional VDI environments make them costly, especially as the workforce and resources required to scale up. Instead, modern solutions require a true cloud-delivered mobile-first approach. Solutions need to align to flexible working styles with seamless access anytime, anywhere, across multiple devices, whilst providing agility, scalability, and enhanced security at lower costs. Now I'll pass you on to my colleague Liam Ray.
Hey, Liam, you're on mute.
Thanks, Sopash.
That's all right.
To alleviate some of these challenges explained by Craig, businesses are now starting to look to the cloud for a solution. Microsoft has two cloud-based solutions, Windows 365, and what we're mostly going to be focusing on today is Azure Virtual Desktop. Windows 365 is a software as a service solution that provides individual desktops with personalized desktops, apps, and app settings, as well as data all securely streamed to the user's end device. This sort of solution is suited for kind of small to medium-sized businesses, whereas on the other hand, AVD is a infrastructure as a service and platform as a service solution hosted in the Azure cloud. The components that make up this solution delivers personalized desktops and apps with maximum flexibility, control, and security. Formerly known as Windows Virtual Desktop, Azure Virtual Desktop, as explained, is a desktop and app virtualization service that runs on the Azure platform. It delivers a desktop and app experience from cloud-hosted session hosts that can be accessed almost on any device from anywhere. There's native desktop apps for Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS, and Linux, and can also be accessed from most modern browsers. Session hosts can be customized with productivity applications such as Microsoft 365, as well as line of business applications and custom applications. Typically, Azure Virtual Desktop is easier to deploy than most traditional remote desktop services or other VDI solutions, as it utilizes Microsoft's infrastructure as a service and platform as a service components. It's easy to deploy and scale within minutes, as well as having significant cost reductions without compromising on quality or performance. Handing over to Craig, where he's going to discuss how Azure Virtual Desktop works.
Yeah, thanks, Liam. So this is a high-level architecture diagram showing how AVD is made up of multiple elements of Azure brought to the end user, and we'll show you a quick demo of this later in the session. These elements include client, gateway, session host, apps and data, remote app and desktop and diagnostics, and Azure infrastructure components like virtual network, storage and compute. I'll run through the process of what happens when a user tries to connect to Azure Virtual Desktop. So the user will click on the AVD client app on their device, which connects over the internet to the AVD gateway service. This is like the front door to the virtual environment. The gateway then checks the user's identity through Microsoft Entra ID to authenticate them. This makes sure the user is who they say they are. And based on the user's access rights, the gateway grants them access to their permitted desktop and apps. The gateway then sets up a secure connection to the correct session host. This is the virtual machine in the cloud that hosts the user's apps and desktop. And the session host has the Windows environment customized for that user, with the apps, documents, and settings ready to go. And also streams this personalized Windows desktop down to the user device, allowing them to access everything as if it were local. So in summary, the gateway authenticates the user, grants access rights, sets up a secure connection, and streams down the virtualized Windows environment from the session host. This provides a simple, secure access to apps and data hosted in Azure. I think we're going to move on to the business benefits. The next slide after this will be showing a demo of what I just discussed there in regards to how a user would access AVD. So going back to the business benefits, referring to the previous diagram, with AVD, you don't have to provision and manage servers and servers roles, such as the gateway, connection broker, diagnostics, load balancing, license. This is all managed on the Microsoft end. In short, AVD provides a managed VDI that is secure, cost-effective, and offers a seamless experience that is comparable to a laptop or local desktop. For productivity, access to apps and data from anywhere improves employee productivity with a unified experience across multiple devices, which helps sustain productivity and user output. With the automation benefit of scaling resources in AVD, users aren't restricted by a lack of compute power, unlike traditional solutions, where in some cases additional hardware is required to increase resources. Compute resources can be allocated on specific user needs, and with AVD's optimization technologies, working with limited bandwidth can still provide a good user experience. With shifting infrastructure management to Microsoft, this reduces the cost for on-premise servers, whilst using the multiple pricing models for licensing and compute, all optimized for the cloud. Using AVD within Microsoft Azure will reduce overall operational costs compared to traditional VDI solutions. For employee costs, access to AVD can be enabled from personal and cheaper thin client devices, as the processing power is in the cloud rather than on the endpoint device. As AVD is a cloud-based platform, there's no requirement to hire an office staff now. With the enablement of remote working, this expands the talent pool outside of the office location, and a flexible work-life balance can also enable the retainment of talented staff, as staff can work anywhere at any time. Scalability is a key benefit, and using AVD, this allows the spinning up and down of resources to meet changing demand and usage. With the infrastructure hosted on Microsoft Azure, this provides access to their global footprint for elastic and flexible scalability. We'll touch on security in the next section, but AVD's tight integration with Microsoft's ecosystem simplifies identity management using Microsoft's multi-layered built-in security controls. And because everything's on the Microsoft Azure cloud platform, this has an SLA of up to 99% uptime with resiliency through features like availability zones, fault domains, and geo-redundant storage replication, which minimizes impact of failures. We can also add in the addition of Azure Backup and Azure Site Recovery for added data protection. Okay, and I'll pass you on to my colleague Liam, which he'll show you an AVD in operation.
Yeah, so as Craig mentioned earlier, I'm going to try and show you a demo of how Azure Virtual Desktop works. I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully you'll be able to see that okay. So from here you can see the Windows native app, and on here I've got kind of 3 apps available to me: Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Premiere Pro, and the desktop. Now, when I select the desktop, I've actually already got it open down the bottom here. This will launch a full desktop experience that we've got set up. And as you can see, I've got Teams running already on here. Now, on this host itself, we've got the Adobe suite of software, as well as some Microsoft packages. So now, if I open up this Photoshop package, you should hopefully see the snappiness of that opening. Now, this is a standard E-series, which is 8 vCPU and 64 gig of RAM. Now, with the OS that we're running Windows 11 multi-session. So the multi-session is designed and optimized for Azure Virtual Desktop. And what this does is this allows multiple users to be connected to the same session host. Now, depending on your workload and the types of work that you anticipate that you're going to be doing, you can limit the amount that of users that will be connected to a particular session host. So Microsoft recommends, for kind of heavy users, that will maybe be 2 to 4 users. For kind of lighter users, you can have up to 16 or 32 users, depending on your workload and the size of session host that you have. I actually just closed Photoshop there, but I'll minimize that. And what I'll do is I'll open up Adobe Premiere as well, put a bit of stress onto there, and you should hopefully be able to see that it's still very responsive opening these applications. And although I've not went into a great amount of detail in some of them, you can see there that it is rendering these pretty well. But again, those of you that are familiar with Teams, you'll know that Teams can be quite heavily resource intensive on your physical device. Now, Azure Virtual Desktop is actually optimized for Teams. It uses the Microsoft backbone to connect to the services that are also hosted in the Azure data centers, and it uses technologies to be able to offload kind of the video and audio processing to your local machine, as well as harnessing the resources available within the Azure Virtual Desktop itself. If I now minimize this, and hopefully I can, I'm now going to bring up, as mentioned earlier, you can see that we can access it through a modern web browser. So similarly, we've got the free applications there. Now, on this occasion, I'm actually not going to select the desktop. I'm actually going to select Photoshop. And what this does is this presents the application to you in a web browser experience without the full kind of desktop behind it. And you can see there that loaded pretty quick, and I can use all the normal features within this application. Now, we've obviously demoed this with Photoshop, but you can use business line applications as well. And what it's doing in the background is it's using the session host as that compute power to present this application on a single app basis. And again, I can open Adobe Premiere and be able to kind of navigate between the two. That's all I've got for a demo, but if you've got any questions about this or want to see it in more depth, please feel free to put a question into the comments and we can reach out to you and give you a more in-depth demo.
Okay, I'll just try and get a slide back. Okay, thanks, Liam. Yeah, so as you can see, it's quite simple in regards to the way it works. AVD. We'll discuss the license cost and the security aspect of it, but that was Liam just showing a simple demo of accessing the AVD environment for a user and accessing remote apps. But as discussed, this can be used in multiple devices and on cheaper laptops, so you don't need to spend a fortune getting a high performance laptop for your staff. Just something that can get them by where they can log in and then log into the AVD environment. And so I'll be discussing the security advantages of AVD versus traditional desktops, and Zopash will drop another poll in the chat. Okay, and I'll pass you back over to Liam, who'll discuss that.
Thanks, Craig. As Craig's previously mentioned, Azure Virtual Desktop is hosted on Azure, so you tie into the Microsoft ecosystem and Microsoft products and solutions are with security built in mind. So with it being hosted on Azure, you'll get all the benefits of the Microsoft security ecosystem. So everything on the Azure platform, all data is encrypted at rest. This is without any sort of manual intervention or setup, and reducing the complexity of implementing it. Microsoft has a sophisticated detection methods through their security tooling to detect and prevent many cyber attacks. In addition, Microsoft has over 3,500 cybersecurity experts working 24/7, working on enhancing security of the platform, as well as providing proactive support. Along with the Microsoft security, you've also got infrastructure security tools. So there's a centralized management over configuration of security policies and updates for all your session hosts. This makes it easier to enforce security across your environment and ensure that there's a standardized approach. You can implement Azure policy to audit and enforce specific configurations, like what type of encryption you want to use, VM sizes and SKUs, network security group rules, and all other related, and applies to all Azure Virtual Desktop related resources. Within Azure, there's a tool called Azure Patch Management. This makes it simple to update all session hosts, ensuring that there's no disruption to end users' productivity and minimizing downtime while keeping your session hosts up to date and secure. Azure has many options to provide business continuity. With a base golden image, it is easy to revert back to a last known good configuration in the event of an attack. Users' data and session hosts can be backed up with Azure Backup, and data can be replicated across multiple regions. Session hosts can be distributed across multiple regions to provide extra resiliency. Each session host runs in isolation from physical devices and runs in isolation from other resources in Azure. This separation makes it harder for malware or attacks to spread laterally across your environment. Controls can be put in place to prevent users from moving data between physical and virtual devices. In the event of an attack, it's easy to scale down the number of desktops available to limit the attack and reduce your attack surface. Likewise, it's easy enough to scale back up to provide the additional session hosts to allow users to reconnect. Defender for Cloud integrates well with Azure Virtual Desktop and provides intelligent security and gives actionable insights based on machine learning, behavioral analytics, and application-based intelligence to greatly improve business security posture. As the Defender for Cloud continuously monitors usage, it is able to better discover anomalies before it's too late. Now I'll hand you over to Craig and he'll discuss data security.
Okay, some of my content will probably tie in with infrastructure security because it all resides within the Azure environment. But for data security, as Liam said, sensitive data and files are stored securely in the cloud rather than on user devices. So this isolates data from endpoints, reducing loss risk if a local device is compromised or lost or stolen. There's additional data protections that can be implemented as well. For example, we can disable the copy-paste functionality between the virtual session and the local device, prevent data leakage. And as Liam touched on, session environments are fully isolated through virtualization too. So this containment helps limit the business impact if malware is introduced, as it cannot escape the infected session. For disaster recovery, Azure Virtual Desktop provides business continuity and disaster recovery capabilities by centrally storing customer data within Azure. This data can be easily backed up and restored if needed. The Azure Virtual Desktop service itself is resilient against outages with geo-redundant storage replication and availability zones. Together, these enable quick recovery of user data in the event of a disaster or disruption. And also, if there's any Azure terminology that we've used in the slides and you don't know what it means, just put it in the chat and we can discuss it at the end. For compliance, data compliance can be met by storing data securely with encryption and using Azure policies to ensure data resides within approved geographical regions. AVD acquires Microsoft Azure's broad range of certifications like ISO, Cyber Essentials, Plus, G-Cloud, SOC, etc. Also, a new feature was released in February this year called watermarking. So that means that each desktop instance can be watermarked with the user and session info to discourage leaks. So for your user managed to get the session or get an image of that session, that would actually have a watermark of the user's details. So if they passed it on, you could easily find out who it was that had done it. And also AVD integrates with third-party data loss prevention solutions like Microsoft Cloud App Security to identify and secure sensitive data. And by tying into Microsoft's built-in security stack, additional monitoring, analytics, and access controls can be implemented to further strengthen data protection. The integration between Azure Virtual Desktop and tools like Cloud App Security enables layers of safeguards to be applied against data leakage or loss in the virtual environment. Can we touch on identity and access management? So expanding on the cloud security that was discussed there, Microsoft Entra can take advantage of AVD's tight integration with Microsoft's stack. It can enforce adaptive access controls and monitor the risks, and it can all be managed within one single pane of glass. This stack includes identity management, where Entra integrates with existing locally hosted Active Directory or Entra ID environments to control user access and permissions, as touched on through the one interface. Conditional access rules can also be set to allow or deny access to AVD desktops based on factors like user identity, device location, etc. So if you're a UK-based company, you can actually lock it down where if a user is abroad on holiday, they can't access the AVD session because it'll be locked down to UK only. This limits exposure in case of stolen credentials. MFA can be implemented with 2FA. You saw it with Liam there when you logged into the remote app and also the AVD session. It was asking for his 365 credentials. We can take that further by adding an MFA into it as well. So use that to get a layer prompt before being allowed to access the session. For role-based access controls, Entra can assign users granular roles, limiting access to specific ADI resources. This prevents over-entitlement. And finally, to session policies, we can configure idle timeout, disconnected timeout, and maximum session duration limits. So that prevents indefinite access to AVD desktops. So you can't have a user just logged into this desktop 24 hours. Okay, I'm going to pass you on to Liam and he'll discuss the operating system management.
Thanks, Craig. So for the operating system management, this will probably be an area that most of you will be familiar with already, as the concepts are very much similar to the traditional setup of RDS or other VDI solutions. So you still have, the built-in Windows firewall, where you can whitelist only the allowed inbound and outbound connections to your session hosts, as well as setting explicit deny. AVD integrates with your existing group policy management, So you can deploy customizations and security settings to your AVD host using your existing group policy and Active Directory environment. AVD also integrates with Endpoint Manager, formerly known as Intune, for software deployment, policy and compliance management. It can also be used for update management too, if you wish. Azure Configuration Management can be utilised to analyse and detect configuration drift across all your session hosts. As you're likely to have multiple session hosts within a pool, users will likely be connecting to different session hosts each time that they connect, so you want that configuration to remain the same across all session hosts. So now we're going to move on to boosting productivity with Azure Virtual Desktop. My colleague Craig is going to talk about boosting user productivity.
Okay, so as mentioned previously, using Azure Virtual Desktop can enhance user productivity in several ways, especially with everyone working remote. You can't actually watch your staff working in the office, so you need to make sure they've got the correct resources and the correct systems so they can produce work. So AVD provides a unified desktop experience across multiple devices, allowing users to maintain workflows regardless of location. And that location can actually be locked down, as touched on previously. There's on-demand scalability of resources, which ensures users have the computing power they need without delays. It also provides integrated management tools that simplify deployment and administration, enabling faster application and user provisioning. And by leveraging Azure's enterprise-grade continuity capabilities, AVD can minimize the downtime and disruptions that hamper productivity in traditional VDI solutions. Then we pass you on to my colleague Liam to discuss integrations.
Thanks, Craig. So Azure Virtual Desktop integrates really well with the full Microsoft suite of software, including Microsoft 365. So with Azure Virtual Desktop, you can leverage the cloud compute to get enhanced performance as required. If you find that you're needing enhanced performance for a period of time, you can use the power of the Azure cloud to scale as required. As previously mentioned in the demo, Azure Virtual Desktop is optimized for teams to get the best experience for calls and audio calls and video calls. This leverages the power of your Azure Virtual Desktop along with offloading technology that is able to then offload some of that processing power onto the local device as well. Again, as previously mentioned, it integrates well with Endpoint Manager for software deployment, policy and compliance management, and as well as software updates. Again, Craig has touched on the fact that it integrates with Azure Entra ID, formerly known as Azure ID, for identity and permission management, as well as being able to harness the conditional access to secure access to the AVD environment. With Office 365, you get enhanced performance with services such as SharePoint, OneDrive, Outlook, and Teams. Azure will be using the Microsoft backbone with ultra-low latency to access these services that are also hosted within a Microsoft data center. So Azure Virtual Desktop can be optimized to meet requirements. You can provision session hosts to meet the requirements of your applications or business users, being able to dynamically scale as required. When session hosts are not in use, they can be shut down and deprovisioned to save on costs. In addition, administration efforts are reduced as there's a single management pane for managing all of Azure Virtual Desktop session hosts. And for example, you could easily initiate an upgrade to Windows 11 by deploying new session hosts to your environment and setting for it to drain the existing session host to allow them to be decommissioned. We now move on to discuss a little bit about Windows 365. My colleague Craig is now going to take you through that.
Yeah, even though the title of the webinar is says boost productivity with AVD, we feel it best to touch on Windows 365 because it's another option that Microsoft provides for a cloud-based desktop environment. So I'll just go, if no one's heard it, I'm just going to go through it now. So as I said, it's a virtual desktop service that's part of Microsoft 365. It offers a fixed price monthly subscription to a cloud PC that is dedicated to a user and can be managed using the exact same tools as a traditional Windows PC. Making a cloud PC available to a user once initial is a matter of assigning an M365 license. A cloud PC is dedicated to a user for a fixed price and is part of the Microsoft 365 cloud rather than the Azure infrastructure. This allows businesses to provide digital services to a wide range of stakeholders that might need them, but where given these stakeholders, a company device might not make sense. For example, non-executive directors, volunteers, temporary workers or trustees can greatly benefit from this service. In many cases, Windows 365 is a more cost-effective solution to alternative VDI solutions. And recently, Microsoft announced Windows 365 Frontline for shift workers. With Windows 365 Frontline, you only pay for the license you need at a given time, at any given time, not every employee. For example, let's say you have 9 frontline workers, but only 3 work each shift. Instead of buying 9 licenses, you just need 3, 1 for each concurrent user. When a shift starts, the cloud PC can be instantly set up for those 3 workers using the Microsoft Intune. And as workers change, the licenses get freed up to the next group seamlessly. So no one user is holding on to the license. So when that user finishes, the license goes back into the pool. So you get fast cloud PC access secured for shifts, or 2 shifts, but only pay for what you use. This optimized licensing model means major cost savings for frontline and seasonal workforces. So the key points for Windows 365 are, you only pay for concurrent users, you can deploy it instantly with Intune as workers change, you save money compared to traditional per user licensing, and workers get access to a cloud PC only during scheduled shifts to maintain security. This is a screenshot of the Windows 365 environment. This is it being accessed from a web browser where the user has different specs of cloud PCs assigned to them. So they would log into this website and a cloud PC would be sitting there, then just launch within the browser. And you can get different specifications for the Windows 365 environment. And they come in different licenses, basic, standard, and premium. All the licenses, basic, standard, and premium, have the same 2 virtual CPUs and 128 gigabyte storage. And the only difference is the RAM, where it's 4, 8, or 16 gigabyte RAM. Okay, so what option would you choose? With this table, we have summarized both Windows 365 and AVD, and I'll touch on the key differences without going through the full table. So Windows 365 is optimized for simplicity. It's easy to set up cloud PCs for individual users, which is simpler for small teams. Whilst AVD is optimized for flexibility, this is a more complex setup because you need to know the Azure environment, especially the identity and networking component, to have a successful AVD deployment. For licensing, Windows 365 is priced per user per month based on PC configuration, as the specs I touched on in the previous slide. And AVD is a pay-per-use model based on usage. And finally, Windows 365 doesn't support custom apps or Linux, compared to AVD, which can host custom apps and server desktops, and also Linux-based applications. Okay, we're going to touch on the migration challenges that could arise moving to a cloud-based environment.
Thanks, Craig. So with some organizations, there may be some migration challenges about moving from kind of traditional solution to Azure Virtual Desktop that's hosted in the cloud. So One of the concerns that we've had with previous customers is that there's a change in the pricing model, which can be quite daunting. So traditionally you would pay for your licensing for your desktops, and then you would buy hardware to host these desktops, and they would be traditionally sat in your data center where you're paying, you know, a monthly or yearly cost. Now, when you move to Azure Virtual Desktop, although there's options for reserved instances, on a lot of occasions that these prices are more dynamic, as you're able to reduce costs by, as previously mentioned, deallocating resources when they're not being used. In addition, there may be some security concerns as you're moving data away from that traditional data center into the cloud. But rest assured, Microsoft has security built in mind, and all data hosted in Azure is encrypted and isolated from other customers. Many organisations may not have the available expertise or resource in-house to embark on a project such as migrating to Azure Virtual Desktop. Some organisations may fear that there's going to be some downtime as they migrate users over to Azure Virtual Desktop. There may also be concerns over application compatibility, especially when there's legacy business applications involved. There may also be a fear of data loss when moving to the cloud. You know, it can be quite daunting at moving large amounts of data from your on-premise environment into a cloud-based environment, but that's where, you know, having a partner like Bridgel, we can ensure that that is handled safely and that all the correct measures are put in place. It may also be a bit daunting, not sure of licensing or if you've got the right licensing in place. Again, having a partner like Bridgel in place will be able to help address any of these concerns and challenges, and hopefully put your mind at ease as you embark on a project of migrating to Azure Virtual Desktop. So now we're going to talk about some real life use cases that Bridgel has previously worked on. Now Craig's going to start us off with discussing Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo.
Okay, and instead of saying that full name, I'm just going to condense it to IMT, as it's a bit of a mouthful. So for this, as you can see, the pandemic kicked in, and we had to come up with a solution to get the management, get the office working. So we deployed an AVD environment. This was successfully deployed to over 30 users and allowed the business to fully function remotely during the pandemic. And because it was so successful, it also changed the way IMT worked moving forward, where they went to a fully cloud-based environment and we migrated the on-premise servers and data to Azure, and they're still working in that environment. So, because when the pandemic hit, most businesses didn't have a remote working solution, because as soon as it hit, we were getting calls, tickets, and that. How do we work from home, and that stuff? So, with this solution, we rolled it out to a number of clients, and there's still clients using this solution to this day. So, and we'll touch on other clients throughout this session.
Thanks, Craig. Another example where COVID-19 had an impact on the way the business was working was V-Ships. Now, V-Ships, you know, coupled with the poor performance of their existing Citrix RDS environment, they were looking for a rapid deployment of a solution that would have low latency and can be accessed across their business. The Bridgel Cloud Services team reviewed available infrastructure and networking options and agreed with the V-Ships team a design that would deliver a solution that would provide the V-Ships global offices and users with a secure, unhindered access to key company applications across a low latency network with maximum scalability and exceptional levels of performance and reliability. They utilised their existing Microsoft 365 licensing. The solution was then able to deliver significant cost savings compared to the company's existing Citrix licensing model. The desktop administration and management delivered from a single console via the Azure portal also provided improvements in their help desk and support. Now over to Craig, who's going to talk about the Scottish National Investment Bank.
Okay, thanks, Liam. Yeah, so with this one, it's a bit different compared to the IMT. But IMT, like during the pandemic, can work remote, so to smell back an AVD environment. This one here was just based on users, or certain users, and that's why we touched on Windows 365, because AVD might not be the only solution for a VDI solution. Because of Windows 365, because it was only going to a small number of users, we just set up COID PCs for the management team, and not for the full user base. For a full user base, we'd recommend a full AVD solution, but as touched on previously with the cost in that Windows 365, sometimes it's better if only a certain users have required COID PCs to go through the Windows 365 route. So this was a simple billing structure for the user assigned COID PCs, and it resulted in a more secure method of working, especially the data they hold. Their bank is very sensitive. So we didn't want them accessing their data on a known Windows device or even on an iPad using OneDrive. We wanted it where they logged into a secure COID PC. We made sure that data could be synced locally, etc. And they're still using that to this day. So that's why I've touched on Windows 365, because from a cost solution, it might be more cost effective to move to Windows 365 COID environment rather than a full Azure AVD solution.
Thanks, Craig. Now we'll talk about Trialmens. Trialmens is kind of one of our newer customers that we've got that have implemented Azure Virtual Desktop. The reason behind that is they had an aging on-premise remote desktop services solution. It was coming to a point where they were needing to replace that solution and required a modern solution that would connect users from their head offices in London, as well as regional offices across the globe in Singapore, Tokyo, and New York, which would allow them to securely access the resource-intensive business applications and data. The Virtual Cloud Services team designed a scalable and high-performance Azure Virtual Desktop solution that could be accessed by regional session hosts within the geographical areas of their offices to provide optimal performance for users while maintaining high levels of security that was required. Adopting this deployment model allowed users to utilize the low latency, high bandwidth Microsoft backbone to connect to on-premise data centers that are hosted in the UK to access their data and applications. Now we're going to have a brief overview of licensing, where Craig's going to start us off with AVD licensing.
Okay, we should have put a poll at who enjoys licensing, because it changes all the time. It does, but we've managed to. We're going to focus on the E3 and E5 licenses. The tools and features we discussed today are available in both those subscription packages. With E3 and E5 licenses, you get the following benefits for AVD. The right to run Windows 10 Enterprise in a virtualized environment. This can be Windows 10/Windows 7. Access to Microsoft Intune, which is being used to manage secure AVD deployments. And access to Microsoft Entra ID Premium, which provides features, well, some of the security features we touched on, like additional access and MFA. In addition, E5 licenses also include the following features that also could be used with AVD. Advanced security features such as Microsoft Cloud App Security, Azure Information Protection for your data. And compliance features such as Microsoft Purview, and productivity features such as Microsoft Teams and Power BI. And finally, to use E3 or E5 license for AVD, you need to have an Azure subscription and create an AVD deployment. You can then assign E5 or E3 licenses to the users who will be using the AVD desktops. That's why in some cases, Windows 365 is a more simple solution for VDI deployments, because an Azure environment doesn't need to be created.
As Craig mentioned, there's going to to use Azure Virtual Desktop, you're going to need an Azure subscription. Within that subscription, you're going to need kind of your compute, storage, networking, and storage for your user profiles. This all comes at an additional cost. And there's many ways that you can optimize your spend to ensure that you get the best value for money. For example, as previously mentioned, you can enable scaling that on your compute resources, which will be able to scale up and scale down as required and saving money when resources are not being used. There is initiatives available from Microsoft for customers looking to adopt Azure Virtual Desktop. We're not going to touch on this today. However, if you do wish to learn more and see if you'd be eligible for some of these incentives, please reach out to our sales team who would be able to arrange a consultation. Now, we've got a little bit of time left if there's any questions that we've not already covered.
And also touching on the security stuff within the webinar, we've actually got another webinar that's on our YouTube channel. It touches on 365 security, but that ties in with Azure Security as well. So that's worth a watch. But as the name says, if you've got any questions, just drop it in the chat, or if any terminology we used, especially for the Azure environment, it doesn't make sense, you can drop it in the chat or reach out to us, and we can arrange a call to discuss it. We can also provide, for some of our clients, provide an Azure proof of concept, because sometimes it is a big move, moving from a local solution to a fully cloud solution. So we do provide Azure proof of concepts that users can test, and then we can look into rolling out to the business.
Yeah. I just want to touch on a question actually that Jordan Baxter had asked regarding performance between published apps and accessing them through the remote desktop. So Ken has already kindly answered that question, but just thought it would maybe be worth bringing it up as well. So you will get similar performance when you're using the remote app compared to the full desktop. However, because you're not needing to kind of render a full desktop experience when just using the remote apps, you will get slight performance benefits, particularly if you're using kind of multi-session and you've got multiple users using the same session host. If you're kind of reducing the resource required to render desktops, you'll then be able to essentially use that resource elsewhere. You can either have additional users, or you can put that back into rendering your applications.
Okay, I can't see many other questions coming in. Yeah, if there's nothing else coming in just now, what we can do is probably wrap up there. So just wanted to say a big thank you to everybody for joining us for the session today, and we hope you found it useful. Wanted to say a big thank you to Craig, Liam, and the two Liams, Liam Ray and Liam Henderson, and Ken as well, who was on the chat answering some of the questions. So just to let you know, we'll be sending out a follow-up shortly. So in the meantime, if you do have anything that comes up, I know what it's like, you can't think of the questions on the day, you might think of it later on, please do get in touch at contact@bridgel.com. We also have another event coming up in September regarding kind of Power BI. So if that's something that you are interested in or would like to know more about, you can do. You can register for that as well. We'll put that link in the chat as well. So thanks once again, and we hope to see you at any future Bridgel events. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Cheers.